Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well today. I am starting today's video, as you can see, with no plants in shot, which is kind of unheard of for me, but I am currently looking after my mum's dog Ted, who has stolen Yoli's bed, and he has been struggling to settle a little bit this morning, so I thought I could just start this video sat with him, sat on the floor, and hopefully they will just calm down a bit. But today I thought I could take you through some of the ways that you can style your plants in order to make your space feel really, really jungly and really, really planty without having to go out and buy a load more things. I know I've spoken in videos recently about the fact that I've been feeling a little bit overwhelmed with my plant care recently, and for that reason I have had quite a big clear out of my collection. And don't get me wrong, I have still got obviously like my big main planty space through there. And I've really made an effort to make sure that the rest of the house does still feel very planty, but I haven't, apart from one thing that I did make a video on, I haven't gone out and bought more things. I've just been mixing up the way that I display my plants in order to make it feel really, really jungly. So yeah, that's the plan for today. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Yoli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learnt over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. And I'll also take you through some info on all the specific plants that I talk about, tell you a bit about their care needs, how fast they are to grow, whether or not it's worth buying. What are we doing? Buying those kind of plants big or letting them grow because they're quick to grow, all that sort of stuff. So yes, I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. So just a little overview of what it's like in here at the moment. Obviously, as I said at the beginning of this video, I am aware that I still do have a very planty space. I've obviously got my big plant space through here that's got loads of my plants in it, but I do genuinely feel like the tips that I'm going to give you in this video can be applied to anyone's collection, whether or not you have hundreds of plants or whether you've got like 10 plants. And the first one is the positioning of your plants. Having plants such as this pothos plant here in dark corners. Oh, sorry, just trod on a dog. You're right, baby. Yeah, using plants to kind of brighten your darker spaces. And I have made specific videos about lots of low light plants that you can use for this. This, as I say, is a golden pothos, and I use golden pothos throughout my home just to kind of add a bit of greenery and make it feel really jungly. This one actually I put here when I first moved in, but recently I've just been thinking this wall here feels like it needs a little bit of green, and instead of putting a whole new plant there and having to give myself something else to look after, I've just used one of the little twisty clips, which you look through there, you can just kind of see it's holding the vines in place. I'll link it down in the description box below, but I just get those and use them to train the vines to almost make it feel like you've got multiple plants in one area. And I just think that, considering I've actually only got 2 plants in the dining area at the moment, that just allows it to still feel really, really planty without having to put loads more things in there. When I first moved in, I did think maybe I'd put like a whole corner shelving unit there, and I'd have lots of things like aglaonema, calathea, lots of things that don't need super high light. But I think this one's kind of doing the job for me for now. I could also obviously get vines and trail them around the mirror, or like train them to go across the beam here and stuff like that, which again just helps to give that really, really planty feel whilst only having one plant to look after. And the golden pothos is one that, as I've said in many videos before, can be acclimated to survive in almost any conditions. Obviously it does need some natural light, but this one here is in a super, super low light spot. I've also got one in my bathroom upstairs that is being supported by almost no light and is still giving me growth. And this is a plant that I would absolutely say you don't have to buy big. It is so quick to grow. I got this one years ago, but I've chopped it back so many times and I've made so many more plants from it because it's such an easy one to propagate. But if you just get a small pothos plant, keep it in good conditions, it will be growing like a weed in no time at all. But then, of course, on the note of plants in dark spaces, if we just come over to these shelves up here, again, I've only got, on these shelves here, I've only got 2 plants, but I think it still does feel quite planty just because of the way that I've styled them. The one at the top here on the right is a Hoya gracilis, and I've banged on about this plant so many times before because it is ridiculously adaptable and so hardy. I only water this plant maybe once every 2 months in the spot that it's in, and although it's not the quickest to grow in this spot, it is still putting out new growth and it does seem really, really happy there. Similarly with this Aglaonema, I have to put the name of this one on the screen because I think I was just sold this one as like zebra stripes or something. I don't know its actual Latin name. But this one, again, not the quickest to grow here, but does remain looking really lush, really happy. I've also just put it in that yellow pot, which I think just kind of helps to make it pop a little bit. And those are 2 plants that I do very little to. They're nice and neatly out of the way. But again, when I look at that area, like I said, although there are only 2 plants in it, it does still feel like it's very planty. If you are going to buy these 2 types of plants, I would say if you're planning on growing them in a low light spot to start with, I would be tempted to buy them not big per se, but not expect them to grow ridiculously quickly in this kind of setup. I have had both of these plants for a couple of years now, and they weren't that much smaller when I first got them, if I'm being honest. So yeah, these are 2 that I would say maybe buying them as more well-established plants is the way to go. I have, however, got another Hoya gracilis through in my planty space here that grows in, I mean, I would say bright and direct light for this space as a whole. But as you can see, this one looks very similar. I wouldn't say the other one looks any more unhealthy growing in lower light. However, this one is constantly popping out new growth for me. Like, that is a year-round thing. It never stops. But I think it's really quite nice to have plants in your collection that are very versatile in regards to their lighting needs, meaning that you can kind of mix things up should you want to. So yeah, I love growing that plant in here. I don't typically have loads of duplicates in my collection, but because that one up there is so versatile, it's one that I would honestly recommend to anyone looking to fill a dark corner and wanting something kind of textury and trailing. But then coming around to the other shelves that I've got here, again, the main ones I'm going to focus on are these 3 here, because again, this is only 3 plants, but because of the way that they're growing, it does make this space feel really planty. It makes the area feel like it's kind of overflowing with greenery, again, without having to put too much in there. And my Philodendron Dean McDowell is the really big one on the top shelf, and this is a crawling plant. And for that reason, although I've ummed and ahed about whether or not I love the plant in this spot, I do think it is the most practical way to grow this plant because obviously it can take up the full length of the shelf. I've also seen people mount their crawling planters like onto the wall, which I did actually think about doing above that door at one point. The only reason I didn't is I was just like, that is going to be a bit of a mission when it comes to watering. But because it is so big and pillowy, it almost gives the illusion of having lots and lots of plants there without having to have too many. And for that reason, it's kind of grown on me. And I think I probably will just let it do its thing in that space, just at least until it outgrows it. And then I will have to rethink. The Dean McDowell, however, is one that I have found to be a very fast grower. I got it when it had about 2 leaves, and that was a couple of years ago now. However, I have not been the most on it with caring for that plant. And I do think if I'd done a little bit more care, a little bit more regular watering, better pest treating, all of that sort of stuff, then that plant would be probably double the size at this point. So again, it's one I would say you don't need to buy big, a couple of leaves, something like that, enough to get it going. But I don't think you need to buy that plant huge. And the other 2 I've got here, I spoke about this one the other day, is my variegated ivy, and this one, now that I've got it growing well, I absolutely love. Again, texture, mixing up the texture of your plants in spaces, I really do think just helps to add that lovely jungly feel. And this one, even if I kind of stand back and look at these shelves from the side, just the leaves tumbling down really makes it feel almost like there's plants on every single shelf, and there's not. The variegated ivy is one, I've said it recently, but it is one that in the past I have struggled to grow. And actually, although again we're right next to the window here, it doesn't really get much direct light here. And I think indirect light is actually the way forward with it. I think because you see this type of plant growing outdoors in the UK so much, I kind of thought, oh, well, it must need really, really high light then. And that really hasn't been the case at all. So I think where I went wrong last time is that I wasn't quite, oh, dogs. You're good, guys. You're good. Good dogs. I wasn't very on it with its watering needs. And this is a plant that is quite a heavy feeder. Like, it likes a fair amount of fertiliser, and it does like quite a lot of water. So currently I'm watering the ivy around about once a week. When we were having that super, super heat wave, it was a little bit more. But yeah, the only thing obviously is that, again, I do have to like climb up to this plant. It's not a very straightforward one to just lift off the shelf, but the rewards I get from growing this plant in this way is just great for me. Like, before, I had loads and loads and loads of plants on these shelves, and although they looked really pretty there, I was just like, that's too much for me to stay on top of. I would prefer to try and grow a few really big kind of gorgeous plants in one area and make it feel planty in that way. And I know I said recently about whether at some point I'm going to have to make the decision about whether I want to grow really, really big plants or if I want to grow lots of little plants and variety. And I think if you've got a very busy life and you don't have a huge amount of time to dedicate to plant care, or maybe you just don't have the energy to dedicate to plant care, I would typically go with bigger plants and less of them, because in my eyes, they are still just as rewarding to grow. You just don't have to do quite so much to keep them happy. But then another one that I don't talk that much about is the Anthurium SP Morona. And this one, I must say, guys, is very slow to grow. Maybe it's not getting quite enough light here and that's why it's not as quick. But again, I just love that strappy foliage. I love how it kind of protrudes off the shelf and makes it feel, again, like beautifully textured. Like, none of these leaves are the same. You've got the lovely pillowy ones up there, the lovely strappy ones there, the delicate little waterfall of leaves there. And together, I just think they bring a lot of life to that space. So yeah, focus on the big ones, focus on texture, and immediately it's going to start to feel way more planty. And then coming over here, the next tip is raising big plants up to make them feel even bigger than they actually are. And I know you might look at this one and be like, oh my God, it's huge. And it is, but actually I have cheated this. I've put another upside down pot on the bottom there, and I've added a good kind of 10 inches to this plant, so it immediately feels way bigger than it actually is. And I've done that with loads of the plants in my collection. And what I've done at the bottom as well is I've just gathered some other low maintenance plants around it. So really it just looks like a little corner of green. All of the ones that I've used around the bottom here are Aglaonema. I've banged on about Aglaonema so many times before. It is such a fantastic genus. It's one that's fairly quick to grow and also is very good at surviving in lower levels of light, similar to the one that I showed you on the shelf earlier. But all of these ones really don't require much care, and they just make it feel like, I don't know, it makes this whole area just feel like a little slice of green, whereas actually it's just disguising the fact that the plant is not as big as you might think it is. Also, because at the bottom here, I've got loads and loads of like sparse growth on my Monstera, areas that I've taken leaves off. I've just popped another plant into the pot, and I feel like that just kind of hides it a little bit and again just kind of continues the green up. And then another plant that I've done this for, again in my dining room, is the Dieffenbachia Tropic Snow, which again, I am aware, guys, this is a big plant, but actually if you stand back you just be like, whoa, that plant is huge. And if you have a little peek at what I've done with it, I've put it on a plant stand, but I've also put a terracotta drainage tray on top of the plant stands to add even more height, and I put it in a really, really tall pot, which adds so much height onto the plant. And the nice thing is that as this plant grows, if it starts to feel like it is outgrowing the space, then I can just take either the terracotta drainage tray away, I can take the stand away, and I can just let it grow and grow and grow. This is one that... So I did buy this plant big. I got this one from Emma's wedding. She had a beautiful planty wedding. It is a very fast one to grow, but again, if you look at the lighting that this one's growing in, I've got these lights here on at the moment, but if I just turn them down, you can see that actually this is still a very low light spot. That beautiful space there doesn't actually bring that much light through. And again, this window, I mean, that's like 5 meters away from the plant. So I have got my grow cabinet here, which I have got plans for, and currently I've got the grow lights on, but most of the time, this one doesn't have any other light. I have kind of toyed with the idea of maybe putting a grow light above this plant. And again, if you're wanting to just draw attention to your plants a little bit more whilst also keeping them happy, this is definitely something you can do. If you look over in that corner, my big euphorbias there, I have put a little grow light above them, and I feel like it just really helps to highlight them and make them into kind of proper statement plants, whilst also obviously keeping them very, very happy. But if we come back through into my main planty space, in fact, most of the big plants I have raised up. This is my latest addition to my collection, which I'm aware is a very big plant, but I have, even with this one, put it on a stool to make it even bigger. And again, I can move that stool out of the way as the plant grows. And the reason that I got the Thai constellation big is just because this is typically a very slow plants to grow until it gets going. I said in the video that I made about this plant that I came across this one on Facebook Marketplace, and honestly guys, if you're not looking for plants on Facebook Marketplace, you should be. I have come across some bargains on there over the years. And this one, I just feel like immediately gives me that beautiful jungle vibe without having to kind of spend years and years and years trying to grow it from a little thing. I realise it's a very big plant that does take up a lot of space, and that's not maybe realistic for everyone, but immediately this has just brought so much to this corner and I'm absolutely thrilled with it. But again, my bird of paradise here, which again, I'm aware is a big plant, you might not think that it's actually as small as it is, because again, if we look down here, it's not only on a plant stand, it's also on another upside down terracotta pot, which is then on a little stool as well. So I have cheated so much of the height on this plant, and then I've just put, like I have done in the living room, another plant in front of it to just hide that. And I really think the key when you're creating a jungly space is for just kind of lots of dynamic, like having plants feeling like they're towering over you, feeling very jungly in that sense. And if I hadn't raised this one up, it would still be a beautiful plant, but it definitely wouldn't be giving that same effect. So yeah, I would say if you can get some tall plants and then just cheat their height by making them even taller, immediately that is going to make things feel much more jungly. And also, again, just coming back to texture and obviously going to one of my favourite plants, the Anthurium paladlorum. This is one that I have put in a very, very tall pot, and I've put it on the highest possible shelf so that it immediately makes the plant feel much more grand and obviously supports the growth and allows it space to grow, but it does just feel pretty mega. And this space at the moment, I don't know exactly how many plants I've got in it, but it is nowhere near as many as it was like when I was at the flat, for example. And if you've been on my channel for a while, you know that I grew pretty much all of these plants in my 1-bedroom flat for a good couple of years. And I made it work. I did make it work. But I do think that because I've had a downsize here recently, I was like, will it just feel really bare? And obviously it doesn't, because I've just filled the gaps with things in order to make it feel more like packed out. But actually a lot of it is just kind of cheating. Like one of the things I always notice when I come into this planty space is the fact that I've got like vines going all the way around here. And like, this is my Rhaphidophora tetrasperma that is literally spanning the circumference pretty much of this room now. And it looks so gorgeous. However, again, guys, this is just one plant. This is just one plant. And although it adds greenery to every single area of this room pretty much, it is just one single thing that I'm having to look after. And again, the Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, particularly the one that looks like this with slightly smaller leaves, which I believe is not a tissue culture plant. It's more of a true form Rhaphidophora. I find this one so quick to grow. When I was at the flat, I chopped this one right back to I think about 30 centimetres, and it has given me all of this growth in such a short space of time. It's also starting to put out various other growth points like that, and I hope eventually it will just climb across the whole ceiling and make this space feel gorgeous. So again, I would say this is probably one you can buy small. I originally grew this one from one cutting, and that wasn't that long ago. It was a few years ago, but it wasn't that long ago in the grand scheme of things when you look at the scale of the plant nowadays. And although again, it is growing in this lovely bright space at the moment, it is a plant that can survive and thrive in lower lighting conditions as well, because it did at my old place too. But I think just like training vines to trail in general is a really, really lovely thing you can do to make a space feel more planty. Again, my Mandula pothos that's just hanging in the window here, which again, I got as cuttings from another plant swap. This one has got vines that I've just kind of cheated to make the window feel a little bit more full. I've just hung a little hook there and I'm draping them over. And again, I've got them around that picture there. And again, it just makes the plant feel much bigger and like you're growing more than you actually are. When again, in reality, it is just that one pot there that I'm having to water. I think this is something you can do pretty much anywhere. I did at one point that I recently had to take down annoyingly because it wasn't doing very well, but I did have another golden pothos going all the way across the top of this window. And again, it was due to the fact that I didn't stay on top of it very well that the plants eventually went downhill. But if I was to have had probably less plants and just monitored that one a little bit more closely, that whole space felt really, really green and planty. And again, it was only one thing that I had to look after, which is such a cheat and such a great thing to do that you can do it any space. There are plants to suit all different lighting needs. As I say, I've got the one upstairs in my bathroom, which adds so much greenery without me really having to do anything at all. And just coming out of that planty space again for a second, I think just having plants close to your window, like there's something about, like for example, if we take this one up here, although it's not a big plant, just seeing the light shine through it, it almost just makes the area by your window feel like a little greenhouse, which I absolutely love. I am actually going to restyle the plants behind the sofa at some point because I just don't feel like a lot of them are right. I don't like the fact that you can see some and not others, so I'm going to have a mix up there. But again, just looking at this Hoya australis lisa at the end and how it is just climbing the wall. Again, I've used the little twisty clips to do this. It makes it feel like there are so many more plants there than just the one that bit of growth is coming from, which I think, again, just makes life so much easier and just creates the illusion of more plants without having more plants. And then finally, a bit of a weird one, but if I stand here, it almost feels like there are more plants when I look up into this space because of the mirror. And obviously adding mirrors into your space can be a really great thing to reflect the natural light and essentially act as like a cost-free grow light for your plants. But also, I just think that it makes that area feel more planty because you also get the reflection of the plants. So this is something you can absolutely play about with as well. But if you want more videos like this, guys, let me know. I'm constantly restyling things in my space and I really enjoy making them. Also, please drop any tips you've got yourself down in the comments below. I always love hearing your advice and getting ideas from all the things you're doing. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.
Stay sexy, plant lovers.